All right, Mr. Crypto, what are we doing tonight?
We love Stephen King. And we got talking the other night, and we decided that we're going to do kind of a book comparison slash versus movie TV show of his works that have been translated. And here are 5 that I have read and seen the movies. And I think you've seen all the movies. Correct me if I'm wrong. And we're going to look at It. We're going to look at Misery. We're going to look at The Shining. And we're going to look at The Stand. And maybe if we have time, sprinkle a little bit of The Dark Tower. Although that's the one that's forbidden and should never be talked about. We might dare to talk about it.
So starting with The Shining, we've got like a struggling writer, Jack Torrance, who takes his job as a winter caretaker of the isolated hotel, the Overlook Hotel, bringing his wife and son with him to this hotel. And a snowstorm traps them, and we get these malevolent forces starting to haunt them. You start to wonder whether Jack is losing his mind, and the only hope for survival is escape. And it's kind of like one of those trapped type of plots. I think The Shining, I have not read the book. I think I started it, but I didn't finish it. Just got distracted. Nothing was bad or anything. But my wife and I went out to Colorado this past summer, right? And we went to the Overlook Hotel, which was like what inspired Stephen King essentially for the writing of this, right? Because we know that, when it comes to a lot of his writings, like Cujo, for example, there's like an event where like a dog will scare him essentially, or he gets trapped at a hotel and has to spend a couple of spooky nights there. And he uses these fear of the unknown moments to really just breathe life into some, like giving evil, giving fear a face. And I like The Shining because it's like, what is this thing exactly? And I know it's explained more in the books. Like they talk about it a little bit more in the books than they do in the movie, though, about this cause of the evil.
Yeah, and the book is very different if you're talking about the 1980 Kubrick adaptation. The book is much more psychological and, believe it or not, much more emotional. And it goes into more of Jack's unraveling, and there's a lot more supernatural that's prominent in your face through the whole book, where the movie is more surreal, takes a little bit more, is this a mental breakdown of Jack, or is it supernatural? And if you actually pull Danny out, because Danny does see the supernatural stuff, because obviously he has supernatural abilities because he can shine, he has psychic abilities. But if you looked at it just from Jack's perspective, it really feels like he's just having a mental breakdown. A lot of it could be explained away as hallucinations, alcoholism, whatever, he might be taking substance-wise. With Danny in there, you do get a little bit more flavor of that, but it really feels like Kubrick in the movie especially was going for that, where the ghosts and the haunting is very, very obvious in the books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think The Shining is an interesting ability, right? Being able to I don't know if it's like see the past, see the ghosts of the past that are still present. Like he can obviously sense the evil of the location, communicate telepathically. Like it's an interesting thing when we think about a space haunting a person, right? Like the Japanese have a similar concept there that when someone dies like a particularly violent or gruesome death, that they're actually like chained to that area, like haunting that area in a sense. And The Shining kind of like capitalizes on that, like the evil forces that have happened there over the year continue to haunt the location. And, there's like the whole time travel thing of like seeing him in the picture at the end of the movie and stuff. I don't know how the book ends. I was thinking about buying, they sell special editions of the book that I think are only sold at this location in Colorado. And I was thinking about buying it, but it was like $45, $50, something like that. I was like, oh, I don't know, man. But I don't know. Maybe I need to head back to Colorado and get that book, because that would be definitely one of the ones that I would want to read start to finish, since I know I never finished it.
You cheapskate. Yeah, the book is definitely a lot more supernatural in nature. Jack is very different in the book. He is a lot more mild-mannered. He's not a great person, but he's not awful like he is in the movie. He's flawed, but sympathetic. He's moving towards being an alcoholic. And then when they get there to the hotel, that which pushes him into madness and the ghosts and everything. Wendy is very different in the book. Kubrick, there's like whole documentaries about how awful he was to Shelley, and how he treated her and pushed her and stuff, especially some of the scenes where they're like physically fighting in the movie. In the book, she's not so meek. She stands up for herself. She stands up for her son. Danny, I think, is a little bit older in the book too. It's never, I don't remember if it's ever, again, I've read this a long time ago, but I don't remember if it's ever said exactly how old he is. But in the movie, he's kind of portrayed as maybe like 6-7 years old. In the book, I think he's more closer to like a tween. He's like maybe 10 or 11. So he's a little bit more mature in that aspect. And then speaking of, the endings are very different. So I'm going to blow your mind here. Big spoiler alerts, unless you're really going to read the book. Can I spoil it?
No, because I'm going to read the book.
Okay, then I won't spoil the endings. But the endings are 1,000% very, very, very different.
And he's not known for his endings.
Yeah, that's true. But I do think the ending for the book is better. And I guess, I don't know, people probably want to know, do I like the book or the movie better? I think they have their own unique places. The book is better in some regards, and the movie, just with Jack Nicholson and his acting, is pretty amazing. As you see the descent into madness that happens. And just a little side note that there is another version of this in the late 90s. They made a TV miniseries that is a little bit more faithful adaptation of the book to media. So
we actually have a board game, and one of the things you can do is go out to the maze, and then you're safe from certain evil forces and stuff. It's pretty fun. All right, let's move to The Stand, and to do a brief recap of that one. If you haven't read The Stand, or if you haven't read our next one that we want to talk about here, The Dark Tower, which heavily draws from this, a deadly weaponized flu known as Captain Trips wipes out like 99% of the world's population, leaving behind various survivors. And the survivors are kind of drawn to two different leaders, Mother Abigail, a symbol of good, and Randall Flagg, the embodiment of evil, and a big influence on the Dark Tower series as well. As they form societies, clash between good and evil. I don't know, that's my recap. Obviously, kind of unfair to do a recap of how long The Stand is.
Yeah, isn't it like 1,000 pages or something? Again, I read this a long time ago. There is, again, two adaptations. There is in the mid-90s, there's a TV series adaptation. It's like 6 hours long. And then there is a just recent, in 2020, there is an adaptation. I think it's 9 episodes. It's like 9 hours long. And the newer version is a much looser adaptation, I feel like. I didn't watch all of it. I thought it got canceled or it got postponed because of COVID. But I think they did end up finishing it. So I've read the novel and watched the mid-90s TV adaptation, which I felt was a little bit more faithful. The book goes into a lot more detail of like the characters' motivations, especially Stu and Mother Abigail. There's also, I think, a lot more religious tone to the book. I mean, it's there in the TV series, but it's very, very heavy-handed.
And you can't deny like the cultural influence too, right? Like when COVID happened here several years ago now, a lot of people flocked to this book because some people, when tragedies happening, a world pandemic like that, you'll dive into what are the struggles other people have gone through. You'll look into creative, I don't know, it's almost like a cathartic release to see how other people have survived like horrific events like that. And I think it's like, there's something about, we talked earlier about how Stephen King can take a very real event, relate to it, and draw upon those unknown fears. I think we saw those just drawn out, and the way that, not even just for the world being able to relate to it, but even just how the book relates to other Stephen King books. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think this was Randall Flagg's first appearance, right? Like this was like a major birth of a villain, a supervillain, that has appeared through many of his other books. Like this inspired this ongoing, like, what is evil when it comes to like Stephen King's writings.
And in the book, he is much more in line with what is obviously in Stephen King's other books. And this might be one of the biggest diversions from both TV shows, is he is more portrayed as a demon in the book. He's more an agent of chaos. He's trying to draw other people's down. And I don't know, in the TV shows, he's cool. Alexander Skarsgård plays him, so he's super handsome. In the 90s version, he's kind of comes off as campy and goofy, where, I mean, he's a pretty dark figure. I mean, he's literally called the Dark Man in the novel. So, yeah, Randall Flagg is one of the big sticking points for me. I feel like they missed the mark on both TV shows.
If you had to pick one thing, whether it be like the, what was it, 90s miniseries or the 2020s miniseries, whatever it was, or the book, which one? And I'll just say the book loosely. If you know the book well enough to pick the regular versus the director's cut with the 400 pages or whatever, what's the one to invest your time in? The 90s show, the 2020 show, the book, or the director's cut book?
I think it really kind of depends on how much time you have. If you don't have a lot of time, the 90s show is really good. It's well acted. It's pretty well paced. It's only like 6 hours long. So again, you could knock that out in like 3 2-hour sessions, no problem. But if you want the most out of this and you're getting into Stephen King, it might feel a little bit daunting, but it's very complex, which is great. You have a lot of character development. It just requires patience because it can feel a little bit sprawling, and there are quite a few characters in the beginning. There aren't always at the end. Again, I won't spoil the ending, but the ending is pretty universal across the board, so that's kind of good too. So this is one of the adaptations that feels the least changed across all three. So I think that you're going to get something good out of all three. So it's hard to say. It just comes down to how much time investment do you want. Yeah. Okay.
So let's move on to, now I have read this entire book series on this channel and that's the Dark Tower series, which I'm not even going to ask that last question to you because we all know that the movie was hot garbage. We don't speak of it. We only speak of the book, but I know we're going to have to talk a little bit about that disaster piece of a movie. But what is the Dark Tower, right? It's this genre bending, and I mean by bending, I mean it goes through every genre you could possibly imagine in terms of romance, spaghetti western, samurai type films. Like, you name the genre, it has it. Riddle battle. I mean, how many people have riddle battles in their books? But it's one man, Roland Deschain's journey to an inescapable pull of getting to the Dark Tower. It's like a mystery almost through it. And you get to go along with his posse of a couple
gunslingers.
The gunslingers, right? Yeah. And they go on these adventures. You learn about his past. You learn about this alternate universe. And ultimately, like, how many authors can have written so many books to have had a central book to connect it, pulling in characters, events, super trip. We go to that universe, Randall Flagg's obviously in the Dark Tower. We pull together characters and themes from all of your books, like an epic like that. Like this had to have been his Lord of the Rings masterpiece that he'd just been working on all along, it feels like in the back of his head.
And for me, I guess that's the part that is so disappointing in the movie. I didn't so much care about some of the changes that I know, some people are like, oh, his blue eyes, he has to have blue eyes. That's a defining characteristic. And while I'm there with you on stuff, let's talk about The Last of Us, right? I know that sometimes physical characteristics can be a defining part of a character, but putting that aside, they just didn't take the essence of what the story was about, the journey of Roland. And I don't know, I felt like the miscasting of really Randall Flagg, the Man in Black, I think was a big part of it. kind of like to my point with The Stand is like he's supposed to be evil incarnate. He's supposed to be a demonic character. He can't be played as just this lackadaisical, be a lot cooler if you did. Like that's all I could see the whole time with Matthew McConaughey's portrayal of the Man in Black. And it's not just his fault. The writing was terrible. The pacing was terrible. They didn't even just follow the story. And maybe I think because it flopped so hard, they didn't create it into the multiple movies it might have been. But I feel like with the depth that the Dark Tower series has, it has to be a series. It has to be something like Game of Thrones, where it's going to go 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons. Each book is going to be 8, 12 hours long in order to get the depth of the relationships that that Roland has with these myriad of peoples across the whole series, which takes place technically over the course of thousands of years. There's too much to it to cram into, I think, 5 or 6 movies, and then to take pieces of each different book and try to cram into the first movie to just get a blockbuster so you make money, so then you can justify making the rest movies. That's not how you should do media, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a movie maker, but I have an opinion, and I, have a platform that I can express that opinion. So there it is.
So you're saying read the books over the movie?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a big investment. Like you said before, you're like, what should you do? Well, if you want to waste 2 hours of your life, watch that hot garbage movie. If you want to have an amazing adventure that includes other things like sci-fi and love and betrayal and all the things you could want in a story, all rolled into one story, go with the series.
No bias there. All right,
totally biased. Yeah.
So if Gunslinger is the broad magnum opus, everything all at once, Misery, okay, to transition, is the ultra sharp fine tuning of like a dark exploration of a fan writer relationship. And it really traps you in this psychological horror film where you have minimal outside things happening, that it's a very focused relationship in a trapped type film.
Yeah, definitely. So Misery there's Paul Sheldon. He is a famous writer, successful writer, and he kills off his main character, Misery. That's the character's name in his book. And he goes off basically on vacation after he's done with this series, and he gets in an accident and he's stranded, and this lady finds him, and she ends up being a sycophant fan and his number one fan. And she basically tortures him physically and psychologically to write another book bringing Misery back to life because she's so obsessed with this story and this character.
Well, can you imagine just being like, to look at it from like Annie Wilkes' perspective, not trying to elevate her to something she's not, but like imagine being so obsessed with someone like Annie Wilkes was, and to have no control or power over it, right? This whole kidnapping and oh gosh, remember the sledgehammer? This whole like, it's like Saw before Saw movies existed, but way of gaining control, way of gaining power where you were traditionally powerless. It's so extreme that like you can almost just feel haunted by that idea of the twisted and the perverted way that we abuse others just so that we can get our own, if that makes sense. Like Annie had no business doing that, and the fact that she took it that far is what just makes it so disturbing.
What's even more disturbing is that if they had made this movie after the Saw series or some of the hardcore stuff that like Eli Roth and everybody made, they might have included the stuff from the book. And that's a big difference. Is she in the book is a lot worse. And Annie is a lot crazier, meaner. And again, I know, like, oh my God, I forgot her name that portrays Annie in the movie.
Kathy
What's
Bates.
her name? Kathy Bates. Thank you.
Kathy Bates.
Yeah. Kathy Bates does such an amazing job. And this is one of the few where I'm torn, where because of Kathy Bates' portrayal of Annie, the movie might be better. Again, very subjective, but it's really, really good. The movie ends on a happier note. So this is one where it doesn't matter which way you look at it, psychological or gore, whatever. This goes into the descent of madness of what happens when somebody becomes too obsessed with something.
Okay, so if this was a singular traumatic event, right? Like, how do those traumas impact you through the ages, through over time, and how does that impact your way of treating others? To transition to our final book/movie combo, It. We have It, which I won't describe what it is for like obvious reasons, but it's this encapsulation of fear that is haunting a town riddled with hatred, that it forces children to come back a generation later to kind of like face their childhood fears, to face who they were. It's a weird hero's journey of a bunch of non-heroes that you're rooting for because they were always the outcast, but they were never evil.
Yeah, it is another one where it has the book, which is massive. And then there are two iterations. There is one from the 90s, and then there's one from like 5 or 6 years ago, like 2018, 2019 or something like that. And they're all very similar in a lot of regards. The only big difference is there's two really key differences. The narrative structure, where the book, it interweaves. One chapter, you'll be in the 1950s, and then the next chapter, you'll be in the 1980s. And then sometimes even the same chapter, you'll weave in and out of the kids remembering things, or they're adults and they're remembering things in the same chapter, where the TV series and the movie, they very much have it distinctly cut. The first parts are... They show the adults and then they flash back to them as kids, and basically the whole movie, the whole 2-3 hours is them as kids, and then the second movie is them coming back to Derry, their childhood home, and facing the monster again, Pennywise the clown. So in both sets of movies do it almost identical like that. So that and then the portrayal probably of Beverly. The kids have a club and they call it the Losers Club because they're all kind of the non-heroes, as Una said. The portrayal of Beverly is very different in the books. A lot of bad things happen to Beverly. It's only slightly kind of implied in both movies, but it's very distinct and very controversial of what happens to poor Beverly. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't read it, obviously, but my wife has, and so I know what happened to Beverly because she told me, and it is kind of, the way you describe it just now, the way that trauma creeps in, the past creeps in, and we're flipping between the present and the past, it almost seems like he's deliberately playing with this idea of fear and memory and how the two are intertwined, and how we can become children, become our fear-ridden selves if we don't know how to conquer it, and how it can rise up and cause you to choke or struggle in certain moments. Like, I don't know, I haven't read the book, but that's what it almost sounds like. It's a very complex weaving of memory and fear.
Yeah, and kind of my conclusion on this is, because we've been kind of talking about the book versus the movie, which one do I like? I think that this is one of the few cases where you're going to get two very different things out of the same source material. The book is an exploration of fear and trauma and your memory and how that reflects back, where you think one thing, but that probably isn't what actually happened because you can't trust your own memory. Where the movies are very much, I think, more towards a horror aspect of it. They are more geared towards some parts are, the jump scare stuff, but it's more of a horror experience. It's more visceral. It's going to give you more of that aspect than the psychological. There is that in there, but I think that is kind of the key difference. So I think here you can enjoy both equally.
All right, so which one are you doing, book or movie for this one?
I can't. I think they're both equally here.
Come on, just flip a coin.
Well, you know what? I'll give it to the late great Tim Curry. His portrayal of Pennywise scared the crap out of me. And when he's on the banister and he's like, like I will never forget that. I'm like, oh my God, that's so scary. Him as a clown, and he's such a great actor. And one of the roles I think he was born to play. So I have fond memories of that one. And the book is slow. It's kind of a slog, and some of the stuff, and poor Beverly, and it's like, We DNF'd a book because of stuff like that, so I don't know if I could ever revisit the book again. So I'm gonna enjoy kind of the campiness of the '90s, and I'm gonna go with the '90s and Tim Curry and John Brandis. He stars as George, or no, he's not Georgie. Georgie, all the balloons float down here, Georgie. He's Georgie's brother. That's right. Yeah.
I remember being terrified of that movie, but even when I watched the new It, Bill Skarsgård was just brilliant with his, not trying to take away from Tim Curry, but like his portrayal of reinventing a new version of It was just magnificent.
Agreed. No, take nothing away from his portrayal either. Both are amazing in their own rights.
Yeah. Well, all right. Those are 5 kind of like movies and books to kind of explore them, talk about maybe some of the differences, what we liked. What would you guys recommend if you're like, hey, I really want you guys to read this particular Stephen King novel? We need to know in the comments, because after we're done with our current read of Ulysses, we said, hey, Stephen King is the next author we're going to read. Let us know what you would want to see in the comments down below. We might do a deep dive. You never know. So talk to you guys soon in the comments. My name's been Una. Thank you for spending time with us today. Peace.
Peace.